Okay, we're going to walk through the Elevate system profile today. It's a coaching tool. It's not just another behavioral profile. If you treat it as such, you won't get the full value out of it. So we're going to go through in HighSpot and at the end talk about how you can use this to develop coaching relationships with your coworkers and to gain insight from their perspective on you. So we recommend that you take a minute and, if you haven't already, go print up a copy so you can make notes as we go through here. And I am going to share my screen. There we go. So that we have a sort of a master copy up here. So from here, let's go to page 4. We talk here about transformational leadership, and that what we're looking to do is to help you to reveal to yourself the leader within. And in some cases, that means stripping away some behaviors that are getting in the way. It means leveraging behaviors that are working for you, but kind of to the nature of leadership. You know, not all of us think of ourselves as leaders. We don't think about the impact that our actions are having on other people. But as it says here, regardless of where you sit in the organization chart, people around you are following your lead. When your team is looking to you as a leader, you have an impact on the overall culture of your organization, department, or work group. This is an awareness that is pretty valuable to realize. And you may be saying, "Oh no, not me." Yeah, you. Yeah, you have an impact on those around you and becoming more aware. You know, we have, as Socrates said, know thyself. Becoming self-aware, being able to engage in what has been referred to as conscious leadership is of vital importance. And a major piece of that is what we refer to as mental fitness. You know, usually people look at mental health, and so you're either healthy or you're unhealthy. It's binary. Mental fitness says no, just like physical fitness, there's a spectrum, there's a continuum from not so fit to very fit. In order to be able to engage in mental fitness, there's some concepts that are helpful. One is that there are 3 distinct parts of the brain. The reptilian brain, which controls our bodily functions, our autonomic functions, heart rate, breath, etc., digestion. We're not really going to talk about those. That sort of is what it is, you know. But there's 2 others. There's the prefrontal cortex, or the thinking, reasoning portion of the brain. Let's just refer to that as the thinking brain, where we reason things out in our mind. And then there's the limbic system, or the emotional brain, which is mostly unconscious. It's where all of our unconscious learnings are stored, etc. And I want to go down here and say that when we're young, we design behaviors. We become comfortable utilizing those behaviors, and they become our comfort zone. We go on to repeat them, and they become habits, making us proficient. The more we use them, the more proficient we become. You know, the limbic system then accesses and implements these habits automatically, unconsciously, and involuntarily. So once a behavior becomes habitual, we just do it automatically, unconsciously, and involuntarily. And we continue to employ these habits without even realizing it throughout our lives. They become our strengths, and they work great until they don't. So they're automatic, they're unconscious. They create our default setting. So historically, psychologists and most of us have seen this, what we call your comfort zone, as who you are. Well, it's just the way I am. It's just the way I've always been. We hear from people all the time. But we now know that that's not true. That those are behaviors that we have become habitual, that we've become comfortable with. We refer to as your comfort zone. But that if they're seen as who you are, they're made concrete and unchangeable. And that neuroscience has taught us that that's not accurate. It contributes to a fixed mindset, so it's counterproductive to growing and improving. You can read here about Carol Dweck and mindset, but once we practice things, the behaviors become an unconscious competency. Learning to type is a great example. Learning to ride a bike. You don't have to think about what do I need to do to balance. You just get on the bike. It's automatic and it's unconscious. So increasing your mental fitness is really about increasing your thinking brain's ability to become conscious of what your emotional brain is motivating you to do. And then choosing, wait a minute, am I going to do that or am I not? This will make more sense as we go. So the first character that we want to look at, and this is what we refer to as your critic, and we all have a critic. It's that voice in your head that criticizes almost everything. Other people, the circumstances around you, and ourselves. Your critic was formed sometime in your childhood and lives in your limbic system. In fact, it's your amygdala that's saying, oh, watch out for that. Oh, that's bad. Oh boy, that guy looks weird. Watch out for him. Or, oh, it shouldn't be raining out. Don't go out. But most of all, it says, don't do that because you might fail. Don't do that because there could be a threat. But in modern society, the threat is, I'm not going to be as good as the next guy at doing this. Or I'm afraid that I don't fit in, which may or may not have any relevance to reality. So the critic is responsible for what we call, or what has been called, the imposter syndrome. The belief held by many successful people that they're a fraud and that they're not really capable of doing the job that they're in, which leads to a fear that they'll be found to be an imposter. This imposter syndrome is insidious, and it really makes me laugh when I think about it. Here's Albert Einstein, who said, the exaggerated esteem in which my life work is held makes me very ill at ease. I feel compelled to think of myself as an involuntary swindler. Einstein, an involuntary swindler. Wow. So if you have some of these same thoughts, just know that everybody does. This is common. In fact, it's universal, I think. We all think we're the only ones because we don't talk about this much, because we do think it's just us. So it's important then that we develop our executive, the thinking portion of our mind. The critic lives in that unconscious limbic system, emotional mind. Your executive is my ability to think, my ability to govern myself. So your executive's job is to do exactly that. And you can read most of this. The aim of mental fitness is to strengthen your executive. It's that simple. And equip it to win the battle over your critic. When you can realize that, oh, that's an unconscious fear that I have, or, oh, that's an unconscious belief that I have, and become aware of it, then you can master it. It's like unconscious bias or unconscious competency, either one. So your critic wants you to stay in your comfort zone. Your critic is constantly saying, do what you know to do. Don't try something new. Stay with that. I don't have to, we don't have to go into what we mean by the comfort zone. It's pretty straightforward. Except to say that we all have needs that make us comfortable, and these unconscious needs are things that we strive for all the time without being aware of it. We all strive for comfort. How often you've heard somebody say, I'm just not comfortable with that? It's human nature to strive for comfort. It's our amygdala, the fear center in our brain, saying, avoid that, It's uncomfortable, which is another word for saying it evokes fear, makes me afraid. So read through the comfort zone portion, and then we're using a 4-factor method to describe your comfort zone. And these 4 factors go back to the ancient Babylonians. I mean, they've literally been in place for 6,000 years. The need for control, which is just, I'm in charge, I'm going to do it my way, here we go. Need for interaction, which is that need for connectedness. These are the folks that talk to everyone on the airplane the entire trip, just because they like to be connected. Need for stability, that need to kind of keep things copacetic and peaceful and calm. And the need for perfection, to make sure everything's right, that it's correct, that it's accurate. So if we take a look at your personal comfort zone, we'll just skip down to page 14. There's a few things I want to point out quickly here. And that is that in each of these areas, first of all, this blue shaded area shows your particular scores. This is your comfort zone. This one happens to be mine, although it says it's for Elevate Sample. I changed my name. Now, there are high needs in each area, which is anything outside of this dashed line. So this and these 3 are all high needs. And then there are low needs labeled here, which is anything that's inside that line. So you can see there's 3 high needs here and 1 low need for stability. Also, the top of the chart is people who are more future focused. So the more area you have above this break line, the more future focused you are. And the area below shows the extent to which you're past focused. Over here is introversion versus extroversion. Again, the more area you show on this side is the extent to which you are introverted. The more on this side is the extent to which you are extroverted. We are, by the way, all ambiverts. We show some portion of each one. Very few of us, if any, are completely one way or another. By the way, to be introverted is to think in one's head. To be extroverted is to think out loud in speech with others. We have a much more detailed, in-depth explanation of this whole graph and how all of these relate to one another. That'll give you a lot more insight into your comfort zone and what drives you in the next video. So as we move on, we're not going to go through these. So you can read through your particular high or low needs for control, interaction, stability, and perfection. And yeah, you can probably tell them flipping pages as we go here. So that brings us to your default success strategies, which are the strategies or behaviors that you use in order to stay in that comfort zone. It's really an expansion on those 4 into now 8 more distinctions that give us more detail, more nuanced understanding. So we develop default success strategies when we're little kids. They're behaviors that become our unconscious automatic methods for success. Our default success strategies are behaviors that we use unconsciously to avoid fear and stay comfortable, stay in our comfort zone. No one wakes up in the morning and says, gee, I think I'll strive for perfection today, or gee, I think I'll be interactive today. Well, no, I don't feel like being interactive today. It's unconscious. You have utilized these strategies to stay comfortable. We all have. And because we utilize those strategies without being consciously aware, we employ them. We tend to use them even in situations when they don't work. I want to say that again. It's not that you have weaknesses. These are all strengths. But if you use a strength in an area where strength doesn't work, just that, it doesn't work. So the challenge here is learning when not to use a strength and when to replace it with something else, some other behavior, which when we come to the coaching section at the end, you'll have some exercises to help you become aware of that. So again, not strengths and weaknesses, but our default success strategy works great until it doesn't. I have a high need for control. When I coach people, I come up with all kinds of great ideas of what they could do. And if I just give them my great ideas, what I will do instead of coaching them is create dependence, which doesn't help them grow, doesn't help them flourish at all. It is counterproductive to my goal of helping people be their best. So I actually need to be much more interactive rather than controlling, and to engage in service, for example, where I'm supporting their success rather than focusing on promoting my ideas. Question is, where does your default success strategy work great, and where doesn't it? Where does it get in your way? So there's a couple things that I want to point out about this too. First of all, the disclaimer. No survey tool can accurately describe something as complex as human behavior, including this one. Anybody that tells you that their survey tool is accurate and has been checked out statistically and all that is either delusional or worse. So don't take this as, wow, this says it's absolutely accurate. It doesn't. This provides you good questions to think, that's interesting. Am I showing up that way? Although some of what you read, you may read and go, yep, that's me. I'm aware of that. So there's a flip side to it. The first side is it may not be accurate, but even more important, the caution, be careful. Because you're not conscious that you're using these behaviors, and you're not conscious of how they come across, you may say, well, that's not something I do. That's not me. And you might be right, but you might not be too. Because you employ these strategies unconsciously, you can't rely solely on your own judgment here. It's just not, how can you know whether you're doing something when you're unconscious that you're doing it? This is true of habits. This is true. And I used to have I think I do sometimes. I have like a twitch where I get nervous. My wife called it stretching my lips. And she used to say, you're stretching your lips again. And I'd say, I am not. That's ridiculous. I don't do that. And then one day she caught me in a photograph and she was right. In fact, she called them chicken lips. So that's a silly example, but it's true too of our behaviors and of the way that we come across with others. So if you look at this example, to relate this back to your comfort zone again, your success strategies that you employ the most are the ones that are outside of this breakpoint, this square box that we showed you earlier. So you can see for this person, which is a different profile than I showed you before, they use the most authority would be number one. Independence is their second most used or most invested. Influence their third, and then very small amounts of acceptance and efficiency. If we go down here, you'll see your ratings. This is how much energy and effort you put into each one of these. Now, again, I want to stress, these are not absolute values. They're not absolutely accurate because it says 0. Does that mean that you invest 0 energy and effort in that? I don't know. Take a look at it and see what you think. Certainly, you rely on these that you invest a lot of energy in a lot more than those that you have lower scores in. Now, I say certainly. Again, check it. But this kind of gives you the hierarchy. You know, what are my go-tos? In this case, you can say these 3 are really strong go-tos, followed by again, we're not gonna go through all these. We're gonna skip down to page 33. So your higher purpose. If you don't know what your higher purpose is at this point, if you haven't done like the work in our workshop on your personal purpose, don't worry about it. We all have some sense of our higher purpose. What is it? Why do we do what we do? What's important about our work? What's fulfilling about our work? So this guide, coaching design guide, is designed to help you to engage in behaviors that advance your higher purpose rather than those that get in the way of your higher purpose. The coaching worksheet, we suggest that after you download the survey, that you set up a time to meet with someone who you'd like to be coached by. And your goal is to get their perspective, their point of view about you. You know, what do they see? What's their experience of you? This takes a little bit of courage, because we're all afraid of what other people think. We're afraid of how they're going to view us. Are they going to judge us? But getting coaching is kind of like looking in the mirror. You know, we don't have much of a chance to look in the mirror at what our behaviors are. There is no such mirror. So someone you can trust can perform this function for you. And the method's pretty simple. Go through your profile, read it, review your default success strategies, especially the ones that, you know, that are your go-tos. We say the ones that combined receive 80% of your energy and effort. And then highlight what you see as assets. What's the stuff that, boy, that really works great in my job? And then highlight what you see as key liabilities, even if you don't agree with it, even if it says this about you, but you say, oh boy, I don't see that about myself. And then give a copy to the person that you want to coach and give them a chance to go through and do the same thing. Have them answer these questions for themselves. And then get together. Next page, and compare notes. Let them know, here's the input I'd like. And we suggest that you ask them, just get their perspective, their input. You know, talk about how does this strategy support your success? And how could you leverage that to build on even more success? How does this strategy hinder your success at work? What are you doing that might get in the way? And what might you stop doing to minimize that hindrance? Pretty straightforward stuff, but really, really valuable. So once you've gone through that, then there's a place to think about, okay, I just got some great ideas from my coach about what I can start doing and stop doing. Well, good. How do you, oh, sorry, I skipped the page by accident. Yeah, so the next page is what conscious strategies would help you to be more successful. And what should you start doing that would help you to live more fully into your personal purpose? Let's go back up to this one. Conscious success strategies would help you be more successful. You know, in my case, I said earlier, I consciously focus on being of service, on communicating less directly, less bluntly, on being more indirect, using sort of inference, in order to let people come to their own conclusions. I use a lot of questions. It's a supportive strategy rather than the direct, more directive strategy that I'm comfortable with. So like me, what strategies might help you to be more successful? And they don't have to be one from the list that you just reviewed in the book here. It could be something just commonsensical, like I need to listen better. That's one strategy, as I need to ask open questions and listen. Yeah, that's it. That it could be just that simple. So new habits lead to real improvement. Good. So if we use the example, you know, what's a habit you want to create? I want to develop the habit of being open-minded. Well, good. What specific actions could you take? And I'm going to go back to my listening point. I want to develop the habit of asking open-ended questions and listening. What specific action could you practice to make that a habit? Well, when I ask a person a question, I could actually hold my tongue with my teeth while listening to them to remind me not to speak. Now, that might sound silly, but boy, if I get a hold of my tongue, it's going to be a pretty good reminder not to talk, not to mention it's hard to talk. And then, we say for the next 3 months to commit to doing that habit regularly, daily, weekly, hourly, whatever is appropriate. Could be a month, could be 6 months, whatever time frame you feel that you can commit to and stay with it. Another method is to connect your habit to a habit already practice. It's called habit stacking by one of the authors, I forget who now. And you can see the example here. And then commit to bringing it to life. If you use this as a tool to get coached and to develop new habits, the Elevate system will be extraordinarily valuable. If you just read it and set it aside and don't do anything with it, it'll be interesting. You might even get an insight or two out of it, but it's not going to help you to be a more effective leader. If you use it interpersonally to build a coaching relationship, it will. So, our recommendation, go find a coach and use this with them. Thanks, and let us know how we can help and what we can do to help further this. Bye-bye.